Well, let's start with an introduction. My name is Alexandr Korol. I've been writing books since 2006. I started writing them when I was 15, 16 years old. Why do I say it with a dash, 15, 16 years old? Because in 2006, before September 12th, I was 15 years old, and on September 12th, I turned 16. That's why I emphasize in the books that I was about 20, 21 years old, or 25, 26 years old when I told some stories. Well, how do we get started? In 2006, I started keeping a diary. And when I felt unusually inspired, I kept a diary and poured out my soul. During these periods of time, I wrote about how I see the world, how I see people, how I see myself. And somewhere around 2008, I collected all my notes and published all of it on social media and made the first book draft of them. Naturally, I didn't know what a publishing house was or how to publish a book. They were just digital manuscripts. And I didn't have any plans whatsoever becoming a writer, and I didn't intend to succeed, and I'm not very good at writing either. But it so happened that I received a lot of feedback from people. There were a lot of people who were not only grateful to me for my first book draft, but people had millions of questions, and they tried to contact me, call me, write to me, just to talk to me. They became very interested in me. What's next? Then, of course, throughout my conscious life, I continued to write books. I tried different formats. I tried to write fairy tales. I tried to write novels. I tried to write some kind of scientific books, as I call them now, scientific treatises. I also published various book drafts on social networks in the format of a diary, because I have been writing it since 2006. And it so happened then when I tried to make my books like everyone else, that is, to make fiction out of them, where grammatical errors, all commas, all these punctuations were edited, my readers, my audience, complained and said that they did not like this format. They liked it when my books were real, when they had mistakes in words, when there is my favorite ellipsis, when there are all these, punctuation mistakes. And I had to keep that style. And so, of course, not only can I already spell out correctly, but I also have a large team of employees, as well as I can ask an editor that will edit all texts beautifully and according to all literary requirements. But it is not allowed. So the first thing you should take note of is that my books, they're underground. That is, it's real creativity. I'm a creative person, and people want to feel the author when they come across my books and get acquainted with my work. And that is why my author's style remains the same. It's very unusual. I also used various authors' techniques. When I've been trying to write a novel for 10 years, I've tried so many times to write it like everybody does it. But it's so artificial and fake for me that every time I stopped and erased it all, realizing that I don't believe it. I don't believe in this novel but it's very artificially contrived. I can't do that, as many writers do. And I decided to make my novel, my first novel, which has a huge number of pages, and I've already published 2 volumes, and I'm working on the third. I decided to make it in a format in which I wrote my first books. It is a first-person novel. That is, it's a diary format where I kind of talk about myself, how I used to keep a diary, but in fact it's a novel. Because when I address the reader like that, it's easier for me. It's more simple for me. I don't have to come up with something and invent something. And in addition to this, I was faced with the fact that over the past 10 years, everything in the world has changed a lot due to social media. And I understand now why you, my dear readers, like this format. When I emotionally, in a hurry, without correcting mistakes, writing something, telling the story on my own behalf, in the first person. Why do you like it? Because you're familiar with it. For the last 10 years, you have been actively corresponding, communicating with your friends, relatives, and loved ones. And in this format of writing, that is, this writing style is known and familiar to you. And so I decided to experiment because all real artists, creative people, that's what they do. They always come up with something new, a new style, a new genre. They experiment without fear or shyness. And I decided to experiment too. And I wrote my first novel, Alternative History, in the first person. And it worked. Those people who have already read this novel, they are delighted with how much it captures their attention. And they read it and forget about where they are. That is, if a person travels somewhere in public transport and reads this book, they forget that they need to get off at some stop. If a person is at home, he's also lost in time and space and forgets that 5 hours have already passed. But I think it's brilliant because I'm a writer, and I believe that any artist, first of all, should be able to keep the attention of the listeners, the readers, or the viewers, if it's a movie. This is probably the kind of charisma that is expressed through the text in my books. And I've just come from the end, and I just finished the second volume of my novel, Alternative History. But now I want to introduce you to other books. And in this introductory first video, I just want to say that I'm a writer and I write books since 2006 to the present day. And I was recently interviewed and asked how I managed in 1 year, 2023, to write and publish 10 books. And I explained that, first of all, why did it happen that I published as many as 10 books in 2023? The first is that I've been writing some books for more than 10 years. That is, this year I published a book that I wrote with my heart. This is a book dedicated to creative people who, as I call it, have a light. This is the book, The Three Paradoxes of a Creative Person. This is a book that is not for the mind, but for the heart. That is, you read it and you don't need to understand anything, but your heart just warmed up and you just feel like you're in love. You start feeling as you're a romantic or a dreamer. It's an incredible book, and I've been writing it for around 13 years in this state of the heart, as I call it. I finished only this year, and only this year, so it is included in 10 published books. The same with the novel Alternative History. I have been working on it since 2010, and only now the first volume has just been completed. It has an incredible ending, and I immediately took up the second volume, which I have also completed now. The second volume of Alternative History is being translated into English, and by the end of 2023 I will publish it as well, and I will be in time to publish it. And for that reason, too, here's an alternative history. Why this year? Because I just finished this novel 13 years later. The rest of the books that are included in this top 10 are treatises. Treatises are small scientific stories, about 60 to 150 pages, no more, where I touch upon certain topics. Treatises are not written with the heart, they are written with the mind. That is, when I analyze something logically with my mind, I pack it all up, find examples, explain it all to a reader for the mind. Then there is such a format of my book. There are only 3 formats of my book. One format is when I write with my heart, when I am like a dreamer, like a creative person, like I'm in love, I'm crazy, and with my heart I wrote 3 paradoxes. When my mind is switched on, when I need to understand and prove everything scientifically, I call it frequency of mind, and these are books such as treatises or what is attention control, what is frequency, what are social strata of society, what is a well-educated mind, what is memory, attention, dynamics, time. That is where I explain everything with the mind, and there are no feelings or heart involved. There, on the contrary, the mind will begin to boil, and personal level of efficiency will increase if one reads these books. Those books are for the purpose of increasing one's level of intelligence. So, whatever you feel, you can express it easily. That is, I'm explaining to you what a person may feel from birth, but cannot explain. These types of books are written with the mind, for the human mind, for education and development of the mind. And on my website, even at the very end, if you click on the triangle, then you scroll down and my perception of the world is divided right into 3 angles of triangle. One angle is the angle of the mind, and all the books that I have written with the mind are listed there. Also, therefore, the angles of the heart, where I have the book, The 3 Paradoxes of a Creative Person. And there is also another angle, that is the spirit. This is another state of perception of the world. When I was writing a book in spirit, and this is my novel, Alternative History. I have just finished the 2nd volume and I am working on the 3rd volume. And the 3rd volume will be next year. Also, in addition to all this, although I have just given you a reference point, that is, I have guided you in such a way that there are people who perceive the world with their minds. They have their minds turned on. This is one side of the soul. There are people who perceive the world with their hearts. This is the other side of the soul. And then there is the 3rd one, which is the spirit. When you have both your heart and your mind developed and in harmony with each other. And then you have a state of spirit. You can also call it the 8th angle of perception. You can also call it 4D. Because the world of the heart is divided into levels, sub-levels into frequencies and dimensions. And the world of the mind is also divided into frequencies, that is, into frequencies and dimensions. And there is also the spirit. And many readers were surprised and noticed and began to argue among themselves or try to argue with me, writing me on social media about the fact that many people started such a legend, that I am not alone, that there are lots of me, that maybe I have a twin brother, that I am always different. And that's how it really is. When I am on frequency of the heart, I am one person. When I am on frequency of the mind, I am different. When I am on the frequency of the spirit, I am yet another me, and I am always different. And that's why there are 3 parallels, and these 3 parallels, I'm in them writing my books. And there is one more reason how I'd managed to complete 10 books in 2023. and how I managed to do that. Because I decided to publish half of the books myself, because the publishing house would take too long. And another reason is because when I'm working on a book, let's say Frequency of the Heart, and when I need to rest, what is rest? This is when you switch to the opposite rhythm. And my rest was not when I do nothing, but when I work on something of opposite rhythm. Let's say I'm writing a book in Frequency of the Heart. I need to rest. I switch to the frequency of the mind and I start writing a book on the frequency of the mind. And when I need a break from it, I switch to the frequency of the spirit and start writing a book in that rhythm. It turns out that I worked on books in 3 parallels for a year. Yes, in 3 parallels. I really like it. I am very pleased with the first feedback from my readers who have read my treatises. For I have a treatise called Attention and Dynamics. In this treatise, I put a lot of emphasis on how to deal with dementia, how to deal with softening of the mental abilities. Many people after COVID complain about concentration, about memory, and I explain what to do about it. And it's just a little story, less than 100 pages, and it explains everything to you. So if you're interested, please read it. Read this treatise. It's freely available, free of charge on my website. I would love to share all the books for free in the public domain, but there are just some books that I want to be on the bookstores, and therefore I publish them through a publishing house. They are sold for a symbolic price. But if it would be possible to make them free, they would be without a price tag on the shelves, but I can't. What else can I say? Of course, when I disappear, many readers worry that something has happened to me. But many times before I have said that if I disappear, then everything is fine. Because when a person disappears, then he doesn't have time for social media, it means that this person is completely busy with his real life. You can imagine how busy I was working on my books, that I had no time for meetings or contacts or for social media, because all of this distracts, scatters attention, and informational background of the mood is also not very favorable in social media. I also touch upon this in my treatises, which are published on the website. And now I have allowed myself a vacation time. This is my vacation. It has just begun. This is December. And this is how I spent my vacation. I don't know how long it will last, maybe a month. Please understand that it turns out that this vacation, I'm taking a break from my writing life, and I can make some explanatory videos about who I am, remind all my old readers and explain to new readers who I am. That is, I write books. Do not confuse me with bloggers. In no way I'm a blogger. I'm not a blogger. And I'm also not a psychologist, although I have a lot of books on what attention is, memory, and concentration. But those are my personal observations. I can also remind everyone, or for the first-timers, open their eyes to the fact that I haven't read a single book other than the Bible. And I never listen to anyone. All my books are my personal observations. All these materials are presented in different formats from different angles. One angle is the angle of perception of the mind. This is one type of books. Another angle is the heart, creativity, and I explain how I see the world. And there is also the format of a novel in the first person. It's a fairy tale. In a format of a fairy tale, I convey to the reader some useful clues about what meekness is, What is self-sufficiency? What is good manners? What is faith? What is discipline? What is humility? What is patience? And it seems to me such an interesting, fascinating novel. In this novel, I focus my attention on philosophical points. I focus on what virtues are, so that people become a little kinder, so that people do not lose their heart, do not lose their hope, do not lose faith, so that people do not sin, do not commit bad deeds. And all this is under the veil of the novel Alternative History. And my request to you is, please do not lose the sight and do not cross this line. For when I published my first drafts of the novel Alternative History, under different titles, I called it The Path, then something else. When people read it, they took it literally, that this story was about me, and then these people looked at me with bulging eyes when they saw me on the street, and they thought I could tell them something or give them a hint, but alas, I'm just an ordinary writer, and this is just a novel. And it's great, of course, that you lose touch with reality so much and you want to talk to the character, with the main character from the Alternative History book. But it's just that character in the book. He's there. It's not me. I'm just an author. I created him and created this incredible story. I'm a writer. I'm a creative person. And I want you to realize the border where there is a character from the book and where there is me. I'm an ordinary person. I'd say I am simple, even probably simpler than many of you, seriously. Just like you, I go to the restroom. Just like you, I have different moods. Just like you, I have my own goals, my own desires, my own weaknesses. And don't forget that. I understand the novel Alternative History is a very powerful book. And even when I warned the readers at the beginning of the book, of the first volume and the second volume, that it's just a fairy tale, a person after reading the first 10 pages, they forget about it, and then emotionally, enthusiastically, they search for me on social media to decipher something for me, or to share something, or to ask me for something. But they forget that they're looking for that character, and the character is in the book. I'm just a writer. I have my own life. You know, maybe I have a family, children, friends, some everyday problems. Maybe I need to go to the dentist tomorrow, and you forget about this and about everything. You think that I'm alone, but please understand there are many of you, and I am just me. So don't try, like in the movie The Perfumer, you don't try to find me and eat me because I smell delicious, please. I'm very understanding towards you. Please extend me the same courtesy. I try to explain it everywhere and on my website that this is just an author's style. Also here on YouTube and on other social media, where this video will be published, where there is an opportunity to make playlists, I will separate videos where I am presenting myself as the author, addressing the readers, and where I am, for example, will be, if you will, in the role of the character from the book, where you can ask him questions, he will answer you. But it will be that character from the book, it will not be me, and so you need to know and feel this invisible border, and then there will be peace and everything will be cool. Thank you for your attention. I hope you will be interested in my website, and also you could read a couple of my treatises. They are short, but especially the treatise on frequencies. It will explain why I live in 3 parallels, and in 3 parallels I see the world. The reading will just take an hour or 2 of your time, and you will have a completely different vision of the world and yourself and me. If you like this video, if you like my books, please share it. Share this video to someone, repost it. I will be very grateful to you. This will motivate me even more and inspire me to make more videos. Although, I will repeat again, I'm not a blogger, and it's more convenient for me, of course, to sit alone at night, write books like I do. But I understand that many people find it difficult to concentrate and read books. For them, it's easier to get information through videos, and therefore, I will make such introductory short, or not so short, half-an-hour videos. I will make them on a regular basis. Thank you for all your attention, for your support. Happy holidays to everyone. Do not argue with each other. Do not offend each other. Be kinder to one another. For we live in a difficult time when many people are trying to conflict. And this, of course, is wrong. You need to be softer and kinder no matter what is happening in the world. Don't panic. Try to treat everyone and approach everything with understanding. Thank you.